To take care of this character's head, I actually want to isolate this part of the mesh so other areas aren't getting in the way. Like this beard is going to cause trouble when we're trying to paint weights to the chin and do the rest of the mouth. So I want to isolate my selection first before I continue. And to do that, we actually want to hide the skeleton so it's not getting in the way of our selection. If you attempt to select some faces with the drag select, with the skeleton in there, Maya will prioritize the skeleton, and you'll only ever be able to select the skeleton. So to avoid that, we just want to go into the outliner here, go to our rig group, and we can just hide that rig group entirely, and then close the outliner. So we'll turn those back on once we're done with our selection, but for now, those are out of the way and we can continue. So first, to get rid of the beard, I'm just going to select all the faces in the beard, and we're essentially going to inverse this selection. So I'm also going to get rid of the mustache here, and even the eyebrows, because we've sort of already taken care of the eyebrows. And then now we can get into a good perspective here and hold down Shift and select the beard and the entire head. And that way we have just the head selected by the end. So when you release, you'll see that we have inverted our selection here. And now we only have the head selected. Now with all those polygons selected, we want to go back into the outliner and control select our rig group as well, so that when we isolate our selection, we can still see our rig. Now with those selected, I'm going to go up into the perspective tools up here and isolate my selection with this button here. And now I'm free to go into object mode and adjust the skin weights as I please. But we also want to unhide the rig group, so I'm going to do that by doing Shift H. And now we have access to all of our controllers, and we can move those around as we work, just like we were doing before. So to get started, I'm just going to select this part of the mesh, and I'm going to go into the Paint Skin Weights tool, and we're going to close the outliner so we have a little more space. And now I'm going to find the head because I want to make sure that the entire head is controlling this face and not the beard or the eyeballs or any other part. So let me find the head in here. It'll be right below the neck. So here's the head. Now we can see everything that the head is being controlled by. And we're losing some weight here in the eyeballs because our eye joints are actually controlling this. So we want to remove that weight from that area of the face. And to do that, I'm just going to use the solid brush, and I'm going to have a value of 1 and opacity of 1, so that when I paint on here, I'm just filling in with complete control. So the head is now controlling this part of the face completely, and we're not getting any weird deformations. And I'm being careful not to select other parts of the mesh. It could be easy to weight the eyeball to the head by mistake. You don't want to do that. So essentially, the entire top part of the head, including the ears and everything, is going to be weighted to the head joint. So we're just going to fill all this in. And we might end up with some sharp edges, but we'll correct those as we go. But for now, I'm just going to get this whole skull. And I'm also going to get the hair, because only a little bit of the hair is going to be controlled with the hair joint. Most of it is going to be sticking to the head and moving along with that. So I get some of these bits over here, make sure we got all of it. And it might be a better idea to actually do this with the component editor, but I feel like sometimes it's just more relaxing to use the paint tool. And it's a little more gratifying sometimes. Just whatever you're in the mood for. And we have a kind of a sharp transition here. So I'm actually going to use the soft brush and change my value. Or, if you don't mind, we could use the smooth tool here. Let's just do it. It might save some time. So I'm going to make my brush a little different size, and I'm just going to smooth this out and hopefully getting rid of some of that sharp skull look that we see. And maybe that's okay, just like that. Back to the hard brush, I'm going to continue to fill in this area, make sure the ears are following along. And from now on, I'm going to use this smooth brush too, just so we're not getting sharp edges everywhere. Now that we're getting more towards areas of the mouth and places that are going to be controlled by other joints, I want kind of a smoother transition. So it looks good for now. Without getting too crazy, I think we can probably start tackling this mouth. And to do that, we want to open the jaw a little bit so we can see how wrong it looks, and we can do what we need to do to correct that. So I'm going to quit the tool, select the controller, and I'm just going to open his jaw. And it's going to be a little scary, but we'll make it less scary. So now, quickly, before he sees us, we're going to go back into the Paint Skin Weights tool. And now we can clearly see there's parts of this jaw that are dragging the upper mouth down. So I'm just going to paint those with a value of 1, and those will pop right back up to the head joint. Make sure those are all in the right place, and we're slowly revealing the teeth and where those should be showing. And now as we get closer to the lower jaw and the cheek and stuff, we want to use a slightly more subtle brush. So I'm going to use the soft brush, and I'm going to use an opacity, a lower opacity. And I'm going to start adjusting these. I want some of the cheek going up as the mouth opens, but not all of it. And I think that looks pretty good. It's a little messy in there, but we can always use a Guilty Smooth on it if we need. So I'm just going to smooth out some of this a little bit just to make it even. And there's actually this chunk up here is causing issues, so I'll want to reduce that. And maybe it's actually a good idea to tackle that from the other direction, so we can go back into the hierarchy over here in the tool settings and select the jaw joint. And now we can start telling parts of the mesh to follow the jaw. So for the jaw, we want all of this area to be white. We want this to be entirely controlled by the jaw. And the closer we get to the other influences, the more soft we want to be. So I'm actually going to switch over to the soft brush and use a lower opacity and slowly pull the cheek back down so we get a good stretch in the cheek as he opens his mouth. That looks a little more natural, huh? And we can even look at some of the edge flow here to make sure things are lining up properly. Things are pulling the right amount and not leaving jagged edges or anything. Like this area here is being pulled way more than its neighbor, but they should really be kind of similar. So I'm going to bring them all down. I'm doing some guilty smoothing here. I'm not going to lie. It's easier sometimes. But as I do that, Maya's applying those weights to other parts of the mesh. And it might cause trouble. I'll have to go back and fix that later. So I'm just smoothing this stuff out and refining. This is a very expressive part of the mesh. And a lot of times it gets a lot of face time in cinematics or something. So it's good to get it looking pretty clean, because it'll be very obvious if something's not right here. So I'm going to switch back up to the head, and we've lost some white weights here, so I'm going to reapply those because I think the gums shouldn't move at all as he opens his mouth. But other than that, I think that's looking all right. So we can quit, we can take a look at it. It looks okay. There's definitely some funny business going on over here. We want to smooth that out, but overall it looks pretty good. So I'm going to close his mouth up. So I'm going to select his jaw controller, and I will go and change it back to a 0 transform. And close these two windows. We can kind of look at our movement now. If you were to talk or anything, it looks much better than it did before. So now I think we can keep moving along and take care of his hair next.